Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Deku received the neural drive. Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The world, for Izuku Midoriya, had always been a chaotic tapestry of noise. Not auditory noise, though the explosions from Bakugo's palms were certainly loud enough, but the noise of data. Of observation. Of questions that had no answers. He was 14 years old, and he was a ghost. A quirkless anomaly in a society where the impossible had become the mundane. Izuku sat in his classroom at Aldera Junior High, the scent of burnt sugar and nitroglycerin lingering in the air. The teacher was droning on about career aptitude tests, a farce that everyone in the room saw through. They were all aiming for the hero course. They all had power, except him, Midoriya. The teacher's voice cut through the raucous laughter of the class like a dull knife. You're aiming for UA too, aren't you? The silence that followed was heavier than gravity. Then, the explosion came. Katsuki Bakugo slammed his hand onto Izuku's desk, the force rattling Izuku's teeth. DKU! Bakugo roared, smoke curling from his palms. You think you can rub shoulders with me? You're worse than the rejects. You're quirkless. Izuku scrambled back, hitting the wall. Kaken, wait! It's not like I'm trying to compete with you. It's been my dream since I was little. And well, there's no harm in trying. Trying? Bakugo loomed over him, a predator toying with a mouse. What can you do? You're nothing. You'd die in the entrance exam. The rest of the day blurred into a humiliating montage. The theft of his notebook, Hero Analysis for the Future, number 13. The callous toss of the book out the window. The fish food. The parting words that stung worse than the burns on his shoulder. If you want to be a hero that badly, there's a quick way to do it. Take a swan dive off the roof of the building and pray for a quirk in your next life. Izuku walked home, the setting sun casting long, distorted shadows against the concrete walls of the underpass. He clutched the soggy, charred notebook to his chest. He wasn't angry. He didn't have the energy for anger. He was just hollow. Is he right? Izuku thought, his footsteps echoing in the tunnel. Is there really no point? Even if I study harder than anyone else, without power, am I just a liability? A sudden, wet sound came from the manhole cover behind him. Izuku turned, his green eyes widening. A mass of dark, viscous fluid surged from the grate, rising like a sentient wave of sewage. Eyes, bulging, manic eyes, formed within the muck. A medium-sized invisibility cloak. The villain hissed, his voice gurgling like a blocked drain. Izuku froze. His legs, usually so quick to run, were paralyzed by a primal, biological fear. He took a step back, dropping his notebook. No! He whispered. The sludge lunged. It hit him with the force of a truck. The fluid forced its way into his mouth, his nose, burning his throat, tasting of rot and chemical waste. Izuku clawed at the liquid, but his fingers passed harmlessly through the villain's body. Don't struggle, kid, the villain laughed, the sound vibrating directly into Izuku's skull. It'll only hurt for 45 seconds. Then it's all over. I'm dying, Izuku thought, his vision spotting with black dots. This is it. No hero debut. No saving anyone. Just drowning in sewage. His lungs burned. The lack of oxygen sent panic signals firing through his nervous system. His brain, usually a frantic storm of anxiety, began to shut down. Help me, someone! And then, a clang. The manhole cover flew into the air. Have no fear! You know why. A figure, massive and radiant, stood silhouetted by the light at the end of the tunnel. Because I am here. Izuku's consciousness faded just as the wind pressure from a single punch scattered the sludge villain across the tunnel walls like splatter art. When Izuku woke, it was to a slapping sensation on his cheek. Hey! Hey! Wake up! He jolted upright, gasping for air that was blessedly clean. Before him stood the Colossus. All Might. The symbol of peace. He was real, he was huge, and he was shining. Thank goodness. All Might laughed, his signature grin plastered on his face. You're okay. Excellent. I apologize for getting you caught up in my justice ing. Usually, I'd pay more attention to keeping bystanders safe, but this sewer system is a maze. Izuku scrambled back, his mind racing. It's him. It's really him. I need an autograph. He looked down. His notebook lay on the ground. He opened it, and there, sprawling across 2 pages, was All Might's signature. Thank you? Izuku bowed so low his forehead nearly hit the pavement. It's a family treasure. I'll keep it for the rest of my life. Think nothing of it. All Might gave a thumbs up. Now I must get this fellow to the police. He patted a soda bottle filled with the trapped sludge villain. Stay out of trouble, kid. All Might crouched, his leg muscles tensing with enough potential energy to crack the concrete beneath his boots. Wait. Izuku reached out. I have to ask you. All Might launched himself into the sky. The wind whipped Izuku's face. He wasn't on the ground anymore. In a moment of sheer desperation, he had latched onto All Might's leg. Hey! Let go! I love my fans, but this is excessive. All Might shouted over the rushing wind. If I let go now, I'll die. Izuku screamed, his cheeks flapping in the G-force. Oh. Right. They landed on a rooftop a few moments later. Izuku collapsed, hacking and coughing, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. But he couldn't rest. He had to ask. He had to know the truth from the one person whose opinion mattered, All Might. Izuku stood up on shaky legs. I don't have a quirk. All Might paused near the exit door, looking back. I get bullied for it. Everyone says I can't do anything. But I want to save people. I want to smile like you and tell everyone it's okay. Izuku clenched his fists, staring at the ground. Can someone without a quirk, can they still be a hero like you? Silence. The wind whistled through the railing. Izuku waited. He waited for the validation he had sought his entire life. Pro-heroes are always risking their lives, All Might said, his voice surprisingly solemn. Some villains just can't be fought without powers. So no, I honestly don't think you can become a hero without a quirk. The world shattered. It wasn't a loud break. It was the quiet sound of hope evaporating. I see, Izuku whispered. If you want to help people, there's always the police force, All Might continued, though his voice sounded strained. They get a lot of flack, but it's a fine profession. It's good to dream, young man, but you have to be realistic. Izuku didn't look up as the door clicked shut. He was alone on the roof. Realistic. The word echoed in his skull. It felt heavier than the sludge villain. Izuku walked through the city streets, a zombie in a middle school uniform. He didn't know where he was going. He just moved. Be realistic. His head began to throb. It started as a dull ache behind his eyes, a pressure building in his sinuses. He rubbed his temples. Was it the lack of oxygen earlier? The stress? He turned a corner and saw smoke. A crowd had gathered near the Tatooine shopping district. Police sirens wailed. Heroes were shouting, holding the perimeter. Izuku's feet moved on autopilot, drawn to the disaster despite his crushed spirit. He pushed through the crowd and stopped dead. It was the sludge villain. He escaped? Izuku's blood ran cold. Because of me. Because I grabbed All Might's leg and made him drop the bottle. The villain had a hostage. Explosions ripped through the sludge, bright and violent. Kaken. Bakugo was thrashing, screaming, his explosions useless against the fluid body of the villain. The fires were spreading. The heroes, Death Arms, Kamui Woods, Empty Lady, were standing back. I can't get close. Death Arms yelled. There's nowhere to grab. I need at least a 2-lane road. Empty Lady complained. My wood will catch fire. Kamui Woods shouted. They're watching, Izuku realized. The headache spiked, a sharp lance of pain driving through his frontal lobe. They're just watching him die. Bakugo's eyes met Izuku's. Fear. For the first time in their lives, Izuku saw pure, unadulterated terror in Katsuki Bakugo's eyes. He was pleading. Thump thump. Izuku's heart skipped a beat. Then, something snapped. It wasn't a mental break. It was a connection. A circuit closing. A dam breaking. System initialization. The text didn't appear in his mind. It appeared in his vision. A translucent blue overlay flickered across his retina, superimposed over the burning street. Error. Biological stress levels critical. Adrenaline, 400%. Cortex limiters, disengaging. Neural drive, online. The world didn't slow down. It stopped. No, that wasn't right. Time was moving, but Izuku's processing speed had accelerated so violently that the world appeared to be frozen in amber. He could see the individual particles of ash suspended in the air. He could see the vibration of the sound waves from the crowd screaming, visualized as rippling distortion lines. The headache vanished, replaced by a cold, electric clarity. Izuku looked at the sludge villain. He didn't see a monster anymore. Target, fluid-based entity. Viscosity high. Weakness, solidification/eye fluidity. Data streamed down the side of his vision. He saw vectors. Trajectories. The fire around Bakugo wasn't just chaos. It was a thermodynamic equation, and the villain was the variable. Izuku's legs moved. He ducked under the police tape. Hey! Get back here, kid! A hero shouted. To Izuku, the hero's shout was pitched down, a slow-motion groaning. Izuku ignored it. He was running, but he wasn't just running, calculating stride efficiency, adjusting center of gravity. He felt his body move with a precision he had never possessed. He stepped exactly where the friction coefficient was highest to maximize his speed. He was 20 meters away. The villain noticed him. A tendril of sludge whipped out. Incoming attack. Vector, 34 degrees from right. Speed, 15 m/s. Evasion window, 0.4 seconds. Izuku didn't panic. He didn't even flinch. He simply leaned his torso to the left. The sludge whipped past his ear, missing by exactly 3 millimeters. He hadn't wasted a single centimeter of movement. He was 10 meters away. He needed a weapon. He had nothing. Correction, his mind whispered, a voice that sounded like his own, but devoid of fear. Inventory check. He swung his backpack off his shoulder. Object school bag. Mass, 4.2 kilograms. Target, right ocular organ. Wind resistance, negligible. Required force, 340 newtons. A wireframe path appeared in his vision, a glowing green arc extending from his hand to the villain's exposed eye. Izuku planted his foot. He rotated his hips. He threw the bag. It flew in a perfect spiral. It didn't tumble. It cut through the air like a missile. Splat. The corner of the hardback math textbook inside the bag impacted the villain's eye with surgical precision. The fluid surrounding the eye rippled, the surface tension breaking. Arg! The villain recoiled, his grip loosening for a fraction of a second. Izuku didn't stop. He slid on his knees, the asphalt tearing at his pants, but he barely felt it. He was inside the fire now. The heat was intense. Warning, temperature critical. Skin damage imminent. Izuku ignored the warning. He saw Bakugo's face. He saw the sludge covering Bakugo's mouth. Obstruction analysis. Fluid density lowest at mandible. Izuku reached out. He didn't claw blindly. He plunged his hands into the sludge at the exact point where the villain's cohesion was weakest, hooking his fingers into the fluid dynamics that held the villain together. He pulled, not with strength, but with leverage. He ripped a hole in the sludge, exposing Bakugo's mouth. Kaken! Izuku gasped, his voice returning to normal speed as he focused. Breathe. Why? Bakugo hacked, staring at Izuku with wide, confused eyes. Why are you here? I don't know. Izuku yelled, tears pricking at the corners of his eyes, blurring the HUD. My legs moved on their own. You looked like you were asking for help. The villain recovered. The eye reformed. The sludge towered over them, casting a shadow of death. You little brat! The villain roared. Threat level fatal. No escape vectors found. Izuku's mind raced. He scanned the environment. Debris. Fire. Heroes too slow. All Might is. His HUD flickered. Detecting high-velocity object. Approaching from rear. Izuku smiled. I really am pathetic, a deep voice boomed, shaking the ground. I told you to be realistic. But here I am, watching a quirkless boy teach me what it means to be a hero. All Might exploded onto the scene, blocking the villain's strike with his forearm. Blood sprayed from All Might's mouth, but his smile was fierce. Detroit. Smash! The air pressure changed. A tornado erupted from All Might's fist. The wind howled, extinguishing the fires in an instant and blasting the sludge villain into droplets of rain that fell across the city. Updrafts caught Izuku and Bakugo. Calculating landing. Izuku tried to adjust his body, but the world suddenly went white. System overheat. Metabolic resources depleted. Force shutdown in 3, 2. The last thing Izuku saw was the blinking red warning light in his vision before darkness swallowed him whole. Beeping. Rhythmic, steady beeping. The smell of antiseptic. Izuku opened his eyes. Boot sequence initiated. System check. Okay. Ga. Izuku sat up, clutching his head. The blue text was still there. It was hovering in the air, labeling the 4 drip, the heart monitor, the window. For fluid, saline/glucose mix. Flow rate, 100 milliliters per hour. Heart rate, 110 BPM, elevated. Izuku! Inko Midoriya tackled him, sobbing hysterically. Oh, my baby! You're awake! I was so worried. The police called, and then the hospital, and you were burning up with a fever. Mom! Mom, I can't breathe, Izuku wheezed, patting her back. She pulled away, wiping her eyes. I'm sorry. The doctor said something happened. Something incredible. The door opened. A tall doctor with thick glasses walked in, holding a clipboard. He looked at Izuku, then at the clipboard, then back at Izuku. Midoriya Izuku, the doctor said. How is the headache? It's gone, Izuku said, rubbing his forehead. He squinted at the doctor. Subject Dr. Kanu. Specialty, neurology. Anxiety level, mild. Mom? Izuku pointed at his eyes. There are words. In my eyes. Inko froze. Words? Dr. Kanu nodded, pulling up a chair. That would be the user interface. Or, as we're calling it, your quirk. The room went silent. Quirk? Izuku's voice cracked. But I'm quirkless. I have the extra toe joint. We did the x-rays when I was 4. You do have the toe joint, Dr. Kanu agreed. Which is why this case is going to be in medical journals for the next decade. You are what we call a late bloomer, but of a very specific variety. Your quirk isn't genetic in the traditional sense. It's a mutation of the frontal cortex and the nervous system. He tapped his own head. We ran a brain scan while you were unconscious. Your brain activity is off the charts, Midoriya. It's not just processing, it's rewriting itself. The words you see? That's your brain projecting information onto your optic nerves to help you process the sheer volume of data you're absorbing. Izuku stared at his hands. He flexed his fingers. He could see the tension in the tendons, the subtle discoloration of a bruising knuckle. He knew, intuitively, exactly how much force it would take to crush the paper cup on the bedside table. What do you call it? Inko asked, trembling. We haven't named it yet, the doctor said. But based on the symptoms, hypercognition, predictive analysis, interface projection, it seems your son has turned into a biological supercomputer. Izuku looked at the blue text floating in his peripheral vision. New hardware detected. Neural drive, Izuku whispered. Catchy, the doctor noted. Now the bad news. Your brain is like a high-performance engine in a compact car. You burned through 4,000 calories in that 3-minute encounter with the villain. You arrived here with a fever of 41 degrees Celsius. If you overuse this ability without proper nutrition and cooling, you could fry your own synapses. Izuku didn't care about the drawbacks. He felt tears welling up again. I'm not quirkless, he sobbed, covering his face. Mom! I'm not quirkless. Inko hugged him again, crying with him. I'm sorry, Izuku. I'm so sorry, I didn't believe it. 2 days later, Izuku was discharged. The world had changed. Or rather, Izuku had changed, and the world had revealed its source code to him. Walking home was an exercise in sensory management. He had to learn to minimize windows. If he looked at a car, his HUD wanted to tell him its speed, make, and engine displacement. If he looked at a building, he saw structural stress points. He had to focus to turn it off. Filter. Ignore. Focus on the path. He turned the corner toward his apartment complex. The sun was setting, painting the sky in gradients of orange and purple. UV index low. Humidity 65%. Young Midoriya. Izuku stopped. He knew that voice. All Might stepped out from around the corner. But he didn't look like the Titan from the tunnel. He was skinny, skeletal, his eyes sunken in deep shadows. All Might? Izuku gasped. Then, his neural drive kicked in. Target, Tashinori Yagi, All Might. BMI, 16.5, critically underweight. Respiratory sound, wheezing, left lung. Skeletal structure, missing stomach, half respiratory system. Estimated time limit, 3 hours per day. Izuku clamped a hand over his mouth. Your stomach. Your lung. You're dying. All Might blinked, blood coughing up from his mouth. Straight to the point, huh? The news said you developed an intelligence quirk. I didn't think it was this potent. All Might sat on the railing, looking tired. You're right. 5 years ago, I took a massive hit from a villain. I'm wasting away. This form you see on TV? It's like a guy sucking in his gut at the pool. Why are you here? Izuku asked. The all was still there, but his analytical mind was now driving the bus. He wasn't just a fanboy anymore. He was an observer. I came to correct what I said on the roof, All Might said, looking Izuku in the eye. I watched the news. I saw what you did. While the other heroes stood by and made excuses, you ran in. You, a boy who thought he was quirkless. All Might placed a hand on his chest. Top heroes have stories about their school days. Most of them agree on one thing. Their bodies moved before they could think. Izuku's breath hitched. That happened to you, didn't it? Yes, Izuku whispered. You told me you wanted to save people. You looked that madness in the face and you acted. All Might smiled, and for a second, the skeleton looked like the Titan again. You can become a hero. Izuku dropped to his knees. Hearing those words, it was everything. He cried, face against the pavement. However, All Might cut in, standing up. I have a proposition for you. Izuku wiped his eyes, standing up. A proposition? My quirk, All Might said, pointing a bony finger at the sky. One for all. It is not something I was born with. It is a sacred torch, passed down from one generation to the next. I have been looking for a successor. And I believe I have found him. He pointed at Izuku. I want you to inherit my power. Izuku stared. Analyzing statement. Quirk, one for all. Type, power stockpile/transfer. Current holder, All Might. Proposed transfer, Izuku Midoriya. His heart soared. The greatest power in the world. My idol's power. I could be the next symbol of peace. But then, the text turned red. Simulation, acceptance of one for all. Recipient body mass, 55 kilograms. Recipient muscle density, low. Neural load, extreme. Warning, hardware incompatibility. Izuku paused. The simulation ran in his mind in a millisecond. He saw himself accepting the hair. He saw the power flowing into him. But his brain was already consuming massive amounts of energy to run the neural drive. If he added the infinite energy stockpile of one for all to a body that was already struggling to support a supercomputer brain. Outcome, biological collapse. Brain death or limb explosion 99.9%. It wasn't just that his body was weak. It was that his quirk was a resource hog. His brain needed every calorie, every drop of oxygen. One for all required the same. They would cannibalize each other. Izuku looked at his hands. He looked at All Might. Izuku started. It's a lot to take in. All Might laughed. But with your brains and my brawn, I can't, Izuku said. The silence stretched out, thin and taut. All Might froze. I beg your pardon? I can't take it, Izuku said, his voice steadying. He tapped his temple. My quirk, the doctor said, it's basically overclocking my brain. It uses a massive amount of energy. If I took your power, the physical backlash combined with the mental strain, I calculated it. I'd die. Or at best, I'd be a vegetable. All Might deflated. I see. I hadn't considered the biological compatibility, but that's not the only reason, Izuku continued. He looked up, his green eyes glowing faintly with the light of his interface. You are the symbol of peace because you are a pillar of strength. You punch away the bad weather. But, looking at you now, I see the structural weakness of that system. If the pillar cracks, society falls. All Might flinched. I don't want to be the next pillar, Izuku said, surprising himself with the conviction in his voice. I want to be the architect who fixes the foundation. I want to be a hero who wins not because I'm stronger, but because I'm smarter. Because I solved the problem before the punch was even thrown. Izuku bowed deeply. Thank you, All Might. You saved my life. You gave me hope. But I have to do this my way. With my own power. All Might stared at the boy. He saw the bandages on his arms. He saw the hunger in his eyes. But it wasn't a hunger for fame. It was a hunger for solutions. Young Midoriya, All Might said softly. You really are something else. All Might turned to the sunset. A hero who wins with his mind. An analytical hero. It's a path no one has walked before at the top level. It will be harder than inheriting my power. I know, Izuku said. Path to UA entrance exam, 10 months. Required training, martial arts, engineering, strategy. Probability of success, 12%. Izuku looked at the 12%. I'll change those odds, he murmured. What was that? Nothing, Izuku smiled, tapping his temple. Just updating my schedule. As Izuku walked away, leaving the greatest hero in the world stunned in the twilight, the blue text in his vision shifted. System status, optimal. Objective, become the #1 hero. Execute. The human brain consumes roughly 20% of the body's daily energy intake. It is a greedy, demanding organ, a furnace that burns glucose to keep the lights on. For the average person, this is a background process, unnoticed and unregulated. For Izuku Midoriya, it was a constant, gnawing starvation. System alert, glucose levels critical. Recommended intake, 800 kcal immediately. Izuku stared at the mountain of rice and grilled fish his mother had placed before him. It was 6 a.m. The sun hadn't even fully crested the horizon, but his internal HUD was already screaming at him. Izuku, honey? Are you sure you can eat all that? Inko Midoriya asked, her hands fidgeting nervously with her apron. She looked at the stack of empty protein bar wrappers already sitting on the table. I have to, Mom, Izuku said, his voice slightly flat. He wasn't trying to be rude. He was just prioritizing the mechanics of chewing over the social nuance of conversation. The neural drive runs hot. If I don't fuel it, it starts cannibalizing muscle tissue. Dr. Kano called it aggressive metabolic recall. He shoveled a mouthful of rice in. Digestion process, initiated. Estimated time to blood sugar spike, 15 minutes. Izuku chewed rhythmically. Chew. Chew. Swallow. Repeat. In the weeks since the sludge villain incident, his life had become a series of numbers. The world was no longer a collection of objects and people. It was a stream of data. The toaster wasn't just a toaster. It was a thermal heating element with a 12% inefficiency rating due to a frayed cord he could see through the casing. The news anchor on TV wasn't just reporting the weather. She was displaying micro-expressions indicating she was lying about the chance of rain to keep viewers' spirits up. He had declined one for all. The memory of All Might's stunned face on the street corner still lingered in his cache. It was a risky calculation. The probability of becoming a hero without a combat quirk was statistically negligible, but Izuku had run the simulations 1,000 times in his dreams. With one for all, he would have been a glass cannon, breaking his bones with every punch. With neural drive, he could be something else, something sharper. I'm heading out, Izuku said, chugging a glass of orange juice in one go. He grabbed his backpack, now reinforced with duct tape and filled with scrap metal rather than textbooks. Be careful at the beach. Inko called out. Don't cut yourself on the trash. I won't, Izuku replied. Probability of tetanus infection, 0.04%. Vaccination status, current. He closed the door. The training had begun. Month 1, the hardware bottleneck. Dagoba Municipal Beach Park was a graveyard of the modern era. Mountains of trash, rotting tires, and rusted appliances choked the coastline, blocking the view of the horizon. To the old Izuku, it was an insurmountable task. To the new Izuku, it was a resource mine. All Might stood near the sea wall, looking significantly healthier than he had a month ago, mostly because Izuku had designed a dietary plan for him that maximized nutrient absorption for his damaged digestive tract. The hero wore a tracksuit, holding a stopwatch. "All right, young Midoriya," All Might boomed, coughing slightly into his fist. "The goal is to clear this section to build your physique. A hero needs a vessel capable of withstanding the rigors of combat, so start hauling those tires." Izuku stood before a rusted, overturned refrigerator. Object, refrigerator, circa 21xx. Mass, 240 kilograms. Structural integrity, compromised. Lifting requirement, impossible for current muscle mass. "No," Izuku said. All Might blinked. "No, lifting it is inefficient," Izuku stated. He walked over to the fridge. He didn't grab it from the bottom. Instead, he pulled a screwdriver and a crowbar from his belt. "This unit contains a salvageable compressor and copper wiring. The frame is heavy, but if I remove the motor and the door, the weight drops by 40%. Furthermore, I can use the compressor for the project." "Project?" All Might tilted his head. "But the point is the lifting. The gains." "I am lifting," Izuku muttered, his eyes scanning the screws. "Screw type Phillips. Rust level high. Torque required 15 Nm. But I am also scavenging. My body is weak, All Might. Even with 10 months of steroids and weightlifting, I won't catch up to someone like Kaken physically. I need an equalizer." He jammed the crowbar into the seam of the fridge door. "Fulcrum point located. Apply force." Crack. The door popped off with a screech of tearing metal. Izuku didn't waste energy. He moved with a fluid, robotic economy of motion. He wasn't struggling, he was disassembling. "I'm going to build my way into UA," Izuku said, wiping grease on his forehead. "This trash isn't just weight. It's parts." All Might watched him, a bead of sweat rolling down his temple. "He's not just clearing the beach, he's harvesting it. This boy, he sees the world differently than I do." By the end of the first month, Izuku hadn't just moved trash. He had built a workshop in a small, abandoned shed near the park entrance. Inside, amidst the smell of oil and salt, lay his first creations, rudimentary, ugly, and held together by zip ties, but functional. A wrist-mounted grappling hook made from a vacuum cleaner motor. Boots reinforced with car suspension springs to dampen impact. "Hardware," Izuku whispered, looking at his hands. "I need better hardware." Month 4, the software update. The body was the bottleneck. That was the persistent error message in Izuku's life. His brain could process a punch coming at him in slow motion. He could see the trajectory, calculate the wind resistance, and determine exactly where to dodge. Incoming fist. Vector, straight right. Speed, 8m/s. Dodge left. Latency, 0.2 seconds. Action. Izuku moved left. Thwack. The sparring robot, a heap of junk he had motorized, hit him square in the ribs. Izuku sprawled onto the sand, coughing. "Damn it," he wheezed. Error. Muscular response delayed. Nervous system transmission speed, optimal. Muscle fiber activation, slow. He knew the punch was coming. He had told his body to move. But his legs were heavy, his fast twitch fibers undeveloped. It was like trying to play a high-end video game on a computer from the 1990s. The processor was fast, but the graphics card was garbage. "You're overthinking it," All Might called out, jogging over. "You see the attack, but you're trying to calculate the perfect dodge. Sometimes you just need to move, kid." Instinct. Instinct is just internalized data patterns, Izuku argued, sitting up and brushing sand off his homemade knee pads. "I don't have the years of combat experience to form instincts. I have to simulate them." He pulled out his phone. On the screen was a video of the pro hero Eraserhead fighting a group of thugs. Analyzing combat style, Aizawa Shota. Focus, joint locks, momentum redirection, low center of gravity. Downloading movement patterns. Izuku stood up. He closed his eyes. In the darkness of his mind, a wireframe skeleton appeared, performing Eraserhead's signature sweeping leg kick. Overlay. Izuku opened his eyes. He saw the ghost of the movement superimposed over his own limbs. Again, Izuku commanded the robot. The metal arm swung. Ghost pattern, engaged. Izuku didn't try to dodge this time. He dropped his weight, miming the wireframe ghost perfectly. He hooked his leg around the robot's base and twisted his hips. The timing was still sloppy, his muscles screaming in protest at the unnatural torque, but the physics held. The robot tipped over, crashing into the sand. Better, All Might noted, impressed. But you looked like you were painting by numbers. I am, Izuku said, staring at his trembling hands. But if I paint fast enough, the picture looks real. For the next 3 months, Izuku didn't just train, he downloaded. He watched hours of martial arts footage, judo, aikido, Krav Maga. His neural drive broke every move down into geometry. He practiced the forms until he passed out from exhaustion, forcing his muscles to memorize the algorithms his brain had already perfected. He wasn't a martial arts master. He was a mirror. A slightly laggy, fragile mirror, but one that could reflect anything it saw. Month 9, the singularity. The beach was gone. In its place was a pristine stretch of coastline, the golden sand glittering in the morning light. But the real change was in the boy standing atop the seawall. Izuku Midoriya had grown. He wasn't the bulked-up tank All Might was, nor was he the lean, explosive athlete Bakugo was. He was compact. Wiry. His muscles were dense, built for efficiency rather than show. He wore a pair of thick, metallic bracers on his forearms, his servo bracers, version 3.0. They were made from salvaged hydraulic pistons and car batteries, designed to add 500 psi of impact force to his punches. Time? Izuku asked, not looking at a watch. 6 a.m. sharp, All Might said, beaming with pride. You did it, Izuku. The beach is clean. And you look ready. Izuku looked at the ocean. The HUD was quiet for once. No warnings. No calculations. Just the rhythmic wave patterns. I'm not ready, Izuku said softly. The variables of the exam are unknown. The terrain is unknown. The competition is unknown. He turned to All Might, and for a moment, the hero saw a flash of cold, blue light in the boy's green eyes. But I have optimized my probability of success to 84%. All Might laughed, a booming sound that startled a flock of seagulls. Only 84%? That's not like you. The remaining 16% is for the chaotic element, Izuku said, a small, genuine smile breaking through his stoic mask. Bad luck. Or Bakugo. The UA entrance exam. The gates of UA High towered over the students like the entrance to Olympus. Hundreds of hopefuls swarmed the path, a kaleidoscope of quirks and colorful hair. Izuku walked through the crowd, his eyes darting rapidly behind his plain bangs. Subject male. Quirk, elongated fingers. Threat low. Subject female. Quirk, levitation? Zero gravity? Threat medium. Subject male. Quirk, naval laser. Threat high ranged. The data was overwhelming, but Izuku had learned to partition his mind. He ran a background process to filter the noise, keeping his conscious mind clear. Out of my way, Deku. The voice was a low growl. Katsuki Bakugo walked past him, hands in his pockets, radiating menace. Subject, Katsuki Bakugo. State, agitated. Gait analysis, slight limp in left leg. Muscle strain? Good morning, Kaken, Izuku said calmly. He didn't flinch. He didn't stutter. He simply noted the limp. You're favoring your left quadricep. Did you overtrain on the lateral jumps? Bakugo froze. He turned slowly, his eyes narrowing into slits. What did you say, you nerd? Your center of gravity shifts 4 degrees to the right with every step to compensate for pain in the left thigh, Izuku recited, tapping his own leg. If you fire a large explosion with your right hand today, the recoil will force you to plant your left leg. Your knee might buckle. I recommend sticking to short bursts or aerial maneuvering. Bakugo stared at him. The old Deku would be shaking. The old Deku would be apologizing. This Deku was diagnosing him. Don't look down on me. Bakugo snarled, sparks popping. I'm not, Izuku said, walking past him. I'm analyzing the competition. He left Bakugo standing there, confused and furious. Izuku continued walking, but his focus on Bakugo made him miss the uneven paving stone. He tripped. Balance loss detected. Impact in 0.6 seconds. Correction, impossible. He braced for the fall, calculating the best way to roll to protect his wrists. But he didn't hit the ground. He floated. Are you okay? A girl with a round face and brown bobbed hair was holding his backpack strap. Or rather, she had touched it, and gravity had decided to take a break. Quirk, gravity manipulation, contact-based, potential, immense. I stopped you with my quirk, she said, smiling brightly. It's bad luck to fall, right? Izuku corrected his orientation in midair, twisting his body to land on his feet as she released him. Thank you, Izuku said. His eyes zoomed in on the pads of her fingers. Pads? 5-point contact requirement? Interesting limitation. Does it affect your inner ear equilibrium when you use it on yourself? The girl blinked. Yeah, actually. I get nauseous. Dramamine might help, Izuku said, bowing. I'm Midoriya. Good luck. He walked away before he could embarrass himself further, leaving Uraraka Ochako wondering if she had just met a robot. The written exam. It was a massacre. Not for Izuku, but for the test. The questions were trivial. Math, science, history. It was all data he had already indexed. His neural drive pulled up the relevant textbook pages in his mind's eye, overlaying the answers onto the paper before he even finished reading the question. He finished the 3-hour exam in 45 minutes. He spent the remaining time silently correcting a grammatical error in question 42 and sketching a redesign for the proctor's hearing aid, which seemed to be emitting a high-frequency whine that only Izuku could hear. The orientation. Welcome to my live show. Present Mike screamed, his voice shaking the auditorium. Izuku sat in the dark, the blue light of his HUD illuminating his face. He wasn't listening to the speech. He was reading the lips of the teacher sitting in the shadowy gallery above. Target, Present Mike. Volume, 120 dB. Message, explaining robots. 3 types of faux villains. Present Mike yelled. 1-pointer, 2-pointer, 3-pointer. A tall boy with glasses stood up, interrupting the presentation to complain about a typo on the handout, and to scold Izuku for muttering incessantly. You over there! The curly-haired one. The boy pointed. If you're here to distract us, please leave. Izuku stopped muttering. He looked at the boy. Subject, Tenya Ida. Calf structure, engine exhaust ports. Family, Idaton? Relative of Ingenium? I was vocalizing my thought process to increase memory retention, Izuku said, his voice carrying clearly across the silent hall. And the 4th villain on the sheet you mentioned is clearly a gimmick. 0 points means high risk, 0 reward. It's an obstacle to be avoided, not an enemy to be fought. It's a logic puzzle, not a typo. Present Mike paused. Correct. The listener is right. The 0-pointer is just a hurdle. Ida sat down, stiffly. I see. Battle Center B. The gates to the mock city were massive. Izuku stood in a crowd of nervous students, including the gravity girl and the engine boy. Izuku adjusted his gloves. He wore a utility belt made of scavenged leather, filled with ball bearings, a spool of high-tensile wire, and a collapsible metal baton he had forged from a bicycle frame. He wasn't wearing a tracksuit. He wore cargo pants with reinforced knees and a dark green hoodie with cooling vents cut into the scalp to help dissipate the heat from his brain. Start! Present Mick's voice boomed from the tower. The other students hesitated. Command execute. Izuku didn't wait. He sprinted. There's no countdown in a real battle. Present Mike yelled. Run! Run! Izuku was already inside the city. He turned a corner and skidded to a halt. A 1-pointer, a robot resembling a treaded tank with arms, rolled toward him. Target acquired, the robot droned. Izuku's vision shifted. The world turned into a schematic. Target, 1-pointer, armor, 20mm steel plate. Impenetrable to blunt force. Weakness detected, exposed hydraulic line behind knee joint. Weapon, collapsible baton. The robot swung a massive fist. Izuku didn't block. He slid. Using the momentum of his sprint, he dropped to his knees, sliding on his reinforced pads between the robot's treads. As he passed underneath, he extended the baton and jammed it upward with surgical precision. Crunch! The baton tore through the rubber casing and severed the main hydraulic line. Fluid sprayed out. The robot's legs locked up instantly. It toppled over, twitching. Points 1. Elapsed time, 12 seconds. Izuku didn't stop to celebrate. He scrambled up a fire escape, seeking higher ground. Verticality offered better data. From the roof, he surveyed the battlefield. It was chaos. Students were blasting robots with fire, lasers, and fists. It was inefficient. They were wasting energy. A three-pointer, a massive scorpion-like machine, crawled up the side of the building opposite him. It prepared to fire a rubber missile. Target three-pointer, threat missile launcher, calculation, trajectory interception. Izuku pulled a handful of ball bearings from his pouch. He waited. His eyes tracked the barrel of the robot's launcher. Now, he threw the bearings. Not at the robot, but at the cluster of sensors on its face. Ping! Ping! Crack! The sensors shattered. The robot recoiled, blinded. Its targeting system reset, turning the missile launcher inward toward its own chassis. Boom! The robot blew itself off the wall. Points 4. Izuku moved across the rooftops like a shadow. He didn't fight fair. He dropped heavy debris on robots passing in alleys. He used his wire spool to trip a group of two-pointers, causing them to pile up, then severed their power cables while they struggled. In the observation room, the teachers watched the screens in silence. "Who is that kid?" Midnight asked, tilting her head. "He doesn't have a strength quirk. Or an emitter. He's not overpowering them," Aizawa muttered, his eyes glued to the screen showing Izuku dismantling a robot's neck with a screwdriver. "He's dissecting them. He finds the flaw in the design and exploits it. It's cold. It's brilliant," Nizu chirped, sipping tea. "Intelligence gathering in real time. But can he handle the pressure when the logic breaks down?" The zero-pointer. The ground shook. It wasn't a vibration, it was an earthquake. Dust billowed from the center of the city. Seismic activity detected. Magnitude 4.5 localized. Izuku stood on a rooftop, panting. His brain felt hot. A dull throb was starting behind his eyes. Current score, 48 points. Status: passing probability high. Then, the beast emerged. The zero-pointer was a skyscraper on tracks. Its hand was the size of a bus. It smashed through a building, sending debris raining down like meteors. The other students screamed. They ran. It was the logical reaction. Threat level, catastrophic. Survival strategy, retreat. Izuku turned to run. His neural drive plotted the optimal escape route. Down the fire escape, take the alley, exit the zone. Ow! A cry for help. Izuku froze. The HUD flickered. He looked down. In the middle of the street, trapped under rubble, was the round-faced girl. Uraraka. The zero-pointer was looming over her, its treads grinding the pavement into dust. Scenario analysis. Distance to target, 40 meters. Robot speed 5m/s. Time to impact, 8 seconds. Option A, retreat. Survival chance, 100%. Option B, engage. Survival chance, 0.001%. His brain screamed A. Logic screamed A. But the image of All Might from the video, the one Izuku had watched 10,000 times, flashed in his mind. A hero is someone who meddles when they don't need to. Izuku's body moved. Warning, illogical action detected. Warning, system override. Shut up! Izuku screamed at his own brain. He jumped off the roof. He didn't aim for the ground. He aimed for the robot. He deployed his grappling hook. The hook caught onto a protruding rebar on the robot's shoulder. The line went taut, yanking Izuku through the air. G-force 4G. Shoulder dislocation warning. He slammed into the metal plating of the zero-pointer, gasping in pain. He was an ant climbing a titan. He scrambled up the chassis, his magnetic boots clinging to the steel. Where is it? Where is the off switch? His eyes scanned the metal surface, processing at maximum overdrive. Scanning. No external controls. Detecting power signature. There. On the back of the neck? A maintenance hatch. But it was sealed. The robot raised its fist to crush Uraraka. No! Izuku roared. He reached the hatch. He jammed his crowbar into the seam. Force required, 4,000 newtons. Available muscle force, 1,200 newtons. It's not enough. Activate. Hysterical strength. Safety limiters, disengage. Izuku's brain sent a signal to his muscles, destroy yourself. His biceps bulged, fibers tearing. Veins popped in his forehead. He screamed, a primal, guttural sound. Re-yip. The hatch flew off. Inside, a thick bundle of cables glowed with blue energy. The central processing unit. Izuku didn't have time to cut them one by one. He dropped the crowbar. He grabbed the main power conduit with both hands. Warning, high voltage. Warning, biological failure imminent. Smash! Izuku yelled, channeling all might. He heaved. He put his back into it, his legs bracing against the chassis. Snap! The cable severed. The hum of the zero-pointer died instantly. The lights in its eyes went black. The massive fist froze midair, mere meters above Uraraka's head. The momentum carried the robot forward slightly, tilting it, but it crashed to a halt, dead weight. Izuku stood on the neck of the fallen giant. Smoke rose from his gloves. His arms were purple with bruising, threat neutralized. And then, the headache hit. It wasn't a throb. It was a sledgehammer. Blood poured from Izuku's nose. His vision went red then white. System critical. Coolant failure. Emergency shutdown. He pitched forward, sliding down the sleek metal of the robot's back. He was unconscious before he hit the ground. Recovery. He's lucky his brain didn't melt out of his ears. The voice was crotchety. Old. Izuku opened his eyes. He was in the nurse's office. Recovery girl was standing on a stool, shining a light into his eyes. Subject, recovery girl. Quirk, heal. Status, annoyed. You reckless child, she scolded, handing him a juice box. You tore muscle fibers in both arms and your body temperature was 104 degrees. Your quirk is powerful, but it eats you alive. Did the girl pass? Izuku rasped. The girl is fine, recovery girl sighed. She's the one who floated you down so you didn't splatter on the pavement. And she tried to give you some of her points, though we don't allow that. Izuku blinked. Points, right? I only got 48. It was a decent score. But was it enough? The villain points were the only metric they were told about. 1 week later, the letter arrived. Izuku sat at his desk, the envelope heavy in his hands. He tore it open. A metal disc fell out. Holographic light filled the room. I am here! All Might shouted from the projection. As a projection, Izuku sat up straight. Young Midoriya! You did well on the written exam. Nearly perfect score. A true testament to your intellect. All Might cleared his throat. However, on the practical, 48 villain points. A respectable score. You would have passed based on that alone. Izuku let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. But All Might raised a finger. A hero's job is not just to destroy villains. It is to save people. And you, who possesses no strength quirk, threw yourself at the ultimate obstacle to save a stranger. The video changed. It showed Uraraka in the teacher's office, pleading for them to give Izuku her points. This young lady risked her score to help you, just as you risked your life to help her, All Might said, his voice softening. How can a hero course reject someone who saves others? Calculating. Rescue points added. Izuku Midoriya. 48 villain points. And 60 rescue points. The numbers ticked up on the screen. Total, 108 points. Rank first. Izuku's eyes widened. The neural drive was silent. There was no data to process. Just pure, raw emotion. You found a way, my boy, All Might said, extending a hand toward the camera. You used your head, and you saved the day. Come, young Midoriya. This is your hero academia, Izuku cried. Silent tears streamed down his face, mixing with the blue light of the hologram. He wiped them away, his gaze hardening. System status, online. Next objective, UA High School. Accepted, Izuku whispered. The knot of a tie is a topological problem. For the average student, it is a fumble of fabric, a morning annoyance resolved by muscle memory or a frantic shout to a parent. For Izuku Midoriya, standing before his bathroom mirror at 6:15 a.m., it was a sequence of vectors and friction coefficients. Object, UE male uniform tie. Material, polyester blend. Friction coefficient, low. Optimal knot, double Windsor for symmetry. Izuku's fingers moved with the jerky, precise speed of a machine. Loop. Cross. Tuck. Pull. Perfect symmetry. An equilateral triangle of red fabric rested against his collar. Izuku! You're going to be late. Inko's voice drifted from the kitchen, laced with the high-frequency tremor of maternal anxiety. I am on schedule, Mom, Izuku called back. He grabbed his blazer. Current time, 6 hours and 18 minutes. Train departure, 6 hours and 42 minutes. Walking pace required, 1.4 meters/second. He looked at himself in the mirror. The boy staring back was different from the one who had cried over a charred notebook 10 months ago. He was leaner. There were dark circles under his eyes, a permanent side effect of the neural drive's caloric and cognitive demand, but his gaze was sharp. Cold, almost. The green irises were overlaid with the faint, translucent blue glow of his interface. It was always there now. He couldn't turn it off. He could only minimize the windows. I'm heading out, he said, stepping into the Genken. Wait. Inko rushed over, handing him a bento box wrapped in an all-white cloth. She hesitated, looking at his face. You look so grown up, Izuku. Are you sure you have your high glucose tablets? Right pocket, Izuku patted his blazer. And your cooling patches? Left pocket. And you promise not to overheat your brain on the first day? Izuku offered a small, genuine smile, one of the few expressions that didn't require a calculation. I promise, Mom. I'm just going to learn. He opened the door to the world. Yue High School. The fortress of heroism. The massive glass structures glittered in the sunlight, a testament to budget and ego. As Izuku walked through the main gates, his HUD went haywire, detecting multiple quirk signatures. Warning, sensory overload. Every student walking past him was a data point. A girl with horns, mutation type, calcium density high. A boy with a tail, prehensile, muscle mass concentrated at the base. A student made entirely of Lego bricks, transformation, molecular bonding unstable? Izuku squeezed his eyes shut for a moment, mentally dragging the notification sliders to mute. Focus on the objective. Class 1A. He navigated the corridors. The hallways were excessively wide, clearly designed to accommodate heteromorphic students. Logic dictated this, but seeing it in person was impressive. He stopped before a door that was 20 feet tall. A giant 1A was painted on it in red. This is it. The top department of the top school. Heart rate, 115 BPM. Cortex status, alert. Don't be nervous. You belong here. You passed the exam with the highest combined score. He pushed the door open. Don't put your feet on the desk. The shout hit him instantly. It was a familiar voice. Tenya Ida, the engine-legged boy from the exam, was chopping the air with robotic stiffness, scolding, of all people, Katsuki Bakugo. Bakugo was reclined in his chair, feet crossed on the pristine wood, a look of utter disdain on his face. Ha! Bakugo sneered. Who do you think you are, Four Eyes? You from some elite private school? I am Tenya Ida from semi-private academy. Semi? So you're a damn elite. Bakugo grinned, a savage expression. I'll have fun crushing you. Analysis. Social dynamics. Subject Bakugo. Dominance display. Subject Ida. Rigid adherence to rules. Compatibility 0%. You're terrible. Ida gasped. Then, he noticed Izuku. The room went silent. Ida turned, marching toward the door. It's you, Ida said, adjusting his glasses. Midoriya. I must apologize. I misjudged you during the entrance exam. You perceived the true nature of the test regarding the rescue points, while I was blinded by the objective. I hate to admit it, but you are the superior candidate. The class turned to look. Whispers broke out. That's the guy who took down the 0-pointer? He looks kinda plain. I heard he ripped the power cable out with his bare hands. Izuku felt the heat rising in his cheeks. Capillary dilation detected. Great. Even the blush is analyzed. I didn't figure it out, Izuku muttered. I just reacted. Oh. It's the plain-looking boy. Izuku turned to see Ochako Uraraka beaming at him. You passed. I was so worried. Your punch was amazing, but you looked like you died afterwards. Uraraka-san, Izuku nodded. Thank you for the save. If you hadn't negated my gravity, my terminal velocity would have resulted in multiple fractures. Uraraka blinked. Yeah? Totally. Fractures are bad. If you're here to make friends, pack up and leave. The voice came from the floor. Izuku's eyes snapped down. His HUD highlighted a yellow object on the ground outside the door. Object, sleeping bag. Contents, human male. Energy level, minimal. A man rolled out of the sleeping bag like a butterfly emerging from a very depressed cocoon. He had long, messy black hair, stubble, and bloodshot eyes. He sucked on a jelly pouch with the enthusiasm of a corpse. It took you 8 seconds to quiet down, the man said, standing up and unzipping the bag. Time is a limited resource. You lot aren't rational enough. The class froze. Subject, Aizawa Shota. Hero name, Eraserhead. Quirk, Erasure. Threat level, extreme. Izuku's breath hitched. Eraserhead. An underground hero who dislikes the media. He fights based on pure skill and tactical suppression. He is the embodiment of the logical hero. I'm your homeroom teacher, Shota Aizawa, the man droned. Put these on and meet me on the athletic grounds. He held up a blue pea uniform. Go. The locker room was a chaotic mix of testosterone and nerves. I can't believe we have a teacher like that, a boy with red spiky hair, Kirishima said, pulling on his shirt. He seems kinda intense. He's Eraserhead, Izuku said quietly, tying his shoelaces. Eraser who? Came a voice from a very short boy with purple balls on his head, Mineta. He's an underground hero, Izuku explained, his voice taking on that familiar mutter track. He's known for resolving incidents with minimal collateral damage. If he's our teacher, it means UA isn't looking for celebrities. They're looking for efficiency. Izuku stood up. He looked at his arms. They were still crisscrossed with faint scars from the beach cleanup, and the deeper bruising from the zero-pointer incident had faded to a sickly yellow. He wasn't built like Shoji or Sato. He looked normal. Can I keep up? Comparative analysis. Class 1A physical averages, high. Izuku Midoriya, bottom 20%. The numbers didn't lie. But numbers could be manipulated. The athletic grounds. The sun beat down on the dirt track. The class stood in a loose semicircle. A quirk assessment test? The class echoed in confusion. What about the entrance ceremony? The orientation? Uraraka asked. If you're going to become a hero, you don't have time for such leisurely events, Aizawa said, his back turned. UA's selling point is its freedom. And that applies to the teachers as well. He turned to face them, his eyes cold. Softball throw. Standing long jump. 50-meter dash. Endurance running. Grip strength. Upper body training. Seated toe touch. Sit-ups. You did these in middle school without quirks. It's irrational. The Ministry of Education is procrastinating. He looked at Bakugo. Bakugo. You finished first in the practical exam. In junior high, what was your best result for the softball throw? 67 meters, Bakugo grunted. Try it with your quirk. Aizawa tossed him a ball. Anything goes, as long as you stay in the circle. Bakugo stepped into the circle. He stretched his shoulder, a feral grin spreading across his face. Dai! He swung. An explosion erupted from his palm, propelling the ball like a cannon shot. Dust kicked up. Projectile velocity, 250 kilometers per hour. Force generation, explosive propulsion. The ball vanished into the sky. Aizawa held up his phone. 705.2 meters. Whoa! Kaminari cheered. 700 meters? That's insane. We can use our quirks as much as we want? This is gonna be awesome. Ashido squealed. Izuku felt a chill. He saw Aizawa's expression shift. It wasn't annoyance. It was predatory disappointment. Awesome, you say? Aizawa whispered. The temperature in the area seemed to drop. You have 3 years to become a hero. Will you have that attitude during a crisis? During a villain attack? Aizawa smiled, a rictus of malice. All right. Whoever ranks last in total score will be judged to have no potential, and will be punished with immediate expulsion. The silence was absolute. Expulsion? Uraraka cried. It's the first day. That's not fair. Natural disasters aren't fair, Aizawa countered. Villain attacks aren't fair. It is a hero's job to correct that unfairness. If you wanted to hang out at Mickey D's with your friends, you're in the wrong place. He swept his gaze over the students. Welcome to the Department of Heroics. Izuku swallowed hard. Probability of bluff, 40%. Probability of truth, 60%. Conclusion, threat is viable. He looked at his hands. The other students had quirks that directly enhanced physical performance. Ida had engines. Uraraka could remove gravity. Bakugo had explosions. Sato had sugar strength. Izuku had a computer in his head. How do I throw a ball with a computer? System advisory. External support gear required for optimal output. Current status, gear restricted. He was naked. Figuratively. He had to rely on biology. Test 1, 50-meter dash. On your mark. Izuku crouched in the lane. Next to him was Bakugo. Opponent Bakugo. Strategy. Rear-facing explosion for propulsion. Self-strategy. Biomechanical optimization. Adjust starting stance. Lower hips 2 inches. Shift weight to toes. Izuku obeyed the HUD. He micro-adjusted his posture. He couldn't make his muscles stronger instantly, but he could ensure zero wasted energy. Start. Boom. Bakugo flew. Literally. He blasted himself down the track. Izuku sprinted. Left foot strike, perfect. Right foot strike, perfect. Wind resistance, minimized. He ran with the form of an Olympic sprinter. Every stride was mathematically perfect. But perfection of form cannot overcome raw thrust. 4.13 seconds. The robot announced as Bakugo crossed the line. Izuku crossed a moment later. 7.02 seconds. It was fast. Much faster than his middle school time. But compared to Ida's 3.04 seconds, it was pedestrian. Izuku panted, wiping sweat. I'm faster. But not fast enough. Test 2, grip strength. Izuku held the dynos. Activate. Motor unit recruitment. Override pain inhibitors, mild. He squeezed. He visualized his forearm muscles contracting tighter than the body usually allowed. Beep. 56 kilograms. He looked over. Shoji was holding the device. 540 kilograms. Izuku sighed. Physics is a harsh mistress. Test 3, standing long jump. Bakugo blasted across the sandbox. Aoyama used his naval laser to hover across. Izuku stood at the line, calculating trajectory. Angle, 45 degrees. Maximize extension. He jumped. He landed well past the average mark, using a parkour roll to extend the distance slightly. But he didn't clear the box. Ranking estimate 15th. He was falling behind. Test 4, repeated side steps. Minato was a blur, bouncing off his balls like a pinball. Izuku tried to keep up. Rhythm analysis. Left. Right. Left. Right. He was fast, his feet moving with machine gun precision, never missing a beat. But without a quirk to aid momentum, he was limited by friction and gravity. The scores were tallying up in Izuku's head. Current standing, 19th or 20th. He looked at the scoreboard in his mind. It was him or Hagakure, the invisible girl, at the bottom. Hagakure had surprised everyone in the sprint by being naked, and thus lighter/more aerodynamic, but struggled in strength. But the ball throw was next. If Izuku didn't produce a result here, an anomaly, a miracle, he was done. Midoriya, Aizawa called. Izuku walked to the circle. The ball felt heavy. Bakugo got 700 meters, Aizawa said, sounding bored. What can you do? Izuku stood in the circle. Think. Analyze. Solve. Objective, maximize distance. Method 1, standard throw. Estimated distance, 45 meters. Method 2, rotational throw. Estimated distance, 50 meters. Result, expulsion. There was no tech solution. He couldn't build a catapult, but there was a biological solution. The neural drive controlled his nervous system. It could regulate hormones, heart rate, and muscle inhibition. The human body limits its own strength to prevent injury. Muscles can only contract at about 30% of their maximum theoretical output during normal activity. In life-or-death situations, adrenaline removes these limiters. Hysterical strength. Mothers lifting cars off babies. Izuku could trigger that manually. Option C, limiter removal. Warning, tissue damage guaranteed. Warning, pain levels critical. He didn't have one for all. He didn't have a stockpile of energy. But he had the potential to use 100% of his existing muscle mass in a single, violent contraction. If I use my whole arm, I'll tear the rotator cuff. I won't be able to do the other tests. Focus it. Isolate the kinetic chain. He wound up. Initiating overdrive. Target, right arm flexors, pectoral, tricep. Limiters off. Izuku's eyes glowed a fierce, bright blue. Veins bulged in his right arm, turning it a dark, angry red as blood rushed into the muscle. He whipped his arm forward. Smash! The air whistled. Thwip. The ball rolled. 46 meters. Izuku stared at the ball. His arm hurt, but not the tearing pain he expected. It felt cancelled. I erased your quirk. Izuku spun around. Aizawa's hair was floating. His eyes glowed red. The scarf around his neck seemed to writhe like a living thing. The entrance exam was definitely not rational enough, Aizawa muttered, stepping closer. Even a kid like you was accepted. You erased it? Izuku whispered. Then the HUD flashed. Error, neural pathway blocked. Connection to motor cortex interrupted. I saw what you were planning, Aizawa said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. You were going to force your body beyond its biological limits. Hysterical strength. A desperate move for a desperate child. Aizawa loomed over him. From what I observed, you can't control the damage that causes. You'd shatter your arm just to throw a ball. And then what? You'd be a liability in a real fight. Someone would have to save you. You're not a hero, Aizawa said, the words cutting deeper than any knife. You're a suicide bomber with a calculator. He blinked. His hair fell. The red glow faded. I've returned your quirk. You have 2 attempts. Hurry up and get it over with. Izuku stood there, trembling. He's right. Statistically, he's right. Emotional distress levels high. Logic? Accept defeat? No. Izuku looked at Aizawa. Subject, Aizawa Shota. Observation, dry eye syndrome. Blinking interval shortened. Weapon, capture scarf. Type, carbon fiber/alloy weave? He's a rational hero. He respects logic. He respects results. I don't need to save my arm. I need to save my future. Izuku picked up the ball again. I can't use my whole arm. If I break my arm, I fail the endurance run. I fail the sit-ups. Minimize the cost. Maximize the output. Recalculating. New strategy. Finger snap. A baseball pitcher generates velocity through the kinetic chain. Legs, hips, torso, shoulder, arm, wrist, fingers. If Izuku used hysterical strength on just the final link of the chain, the snap of the wrist and the fingers, he could generate massive velocity. The damage would be localized to the finger. Damage prediction, phalange fracture, acceptable loss. Izuku stepped into the circle. He's gonna try again? Bakugo scoffed. He's gonna fail. Izuku took a deep breath. Neural drive, max output. Target, right index finger. Timing impact. He wound up. The motion was smooth. Legs. Hips. Torso. Aizawa watched, his finger on the trigger of his quirk. He's moving normally. Is he giving up? The arm came forward. At the very last millisecond, just as the ball was leaving his fingertips. Execute. Izuku's brain screamed a command to his index finger. Contract with the force of death. The muscle fibers in his finger fired with 100% electrical saturation. Boom. It wasn't an explosion of gunpowder. It was the sonic crack of the ball breaking the sound barrier from sheer mechanical force. A shockwave blasted dust away from the circle. The ball vanished. Izuku stood there, panting. His right index finger was purple, swollen, and bent at a sickening angle. He turned to Aizawa. His face was pale, sweat dripping down his nose, but his eyes were burning with defiance. Dr. Aizawa, Izuku said, clutching his broken finger. I can still move. Aizawa looked at his phone. Then he looked at the boy. A slow, creepy grin spread across the teacher's face. 705.3 meters. He had beaten Bakugo by 10 centimeters. Ho! Aizawa lowered the phone. You optimized the damage. Logical. DKU! The shout was primal. Bakugo launched himself forward. Explosions popped in his palms. What the hell was that? Tell me what you did, you bastard! Izuku flinched. Threat detected. Incoming Bakugo. Suddenly, the scarf wrapped around Bakugo. It tightened, binding his arms to his torso. Gah! What is this cloth? Bakugo struggled. It's stiff. It's a capture weapon made of carbon fiber and a special metal alloy, Aizawa droned, his eyes glowing red again. Stand down. Don't make me use my quirk so much. I have dry eye. He released Bakugo. We're wasting time. Next, Izuku walked back to the group. His finger throbbed with a white-hot rhythm. Midoriya! Uraraka gasped, hovering near him. Your finger. Is it okay? It's calculated, Izuku winced. Pain is just data. Pain level, August 10th. Adrenaline dropping. He looked at Bakugo. The blonde was staring at him, shaking with suppressed rage. For the first time, Bakugo didn't look like he was looking at a pebble. He looked like he was looking at a glitch in the Matrix. The rest of the tests were a blur of pain management. Sit-ups. Izuku did them, gritting his teeth against the throb in his hand. Seated toe touch, easy. Distance run. He used a breathing technique he found online to maximize oxygen efficiency, finishing in the middle of the pack. Finally, the sun began to set. Time for the results, Aizawa said. He projected a hologram. Izuku squeezed his eyes shut. Please let the math work out. 1. Momo Yaoyorozu. 2. Shoto Todoroki. 3. Katsuki Bakugo. 18. Toru Hagakure. 19. Minoru Mineta. 20. Izuku Midoriya. Izuku's heart stopped. Result, 20th. Status expelled. The world went gray. The logic failed. He had pushed his body, broken his finger, optimized every movement, and he was still last. The physical gap was too wide. By the way, Aizawa said, scratching his neck. The expulsion was a lie. The class froze. It was a logical ruse to draw out the upper limits of your potential. What? The class screamed in unison. Of course it was a lie, Momo Yaoyorozu said, putting a hand on her chest. It was obvious if you thought about it. No, Izuku thought, staring at Aizawa. No, it wasn't. His HUD zoomed in on Aizawa's micro-expressions. Pupil dilation negative. Heart rate indicator, carotid artery steady. Conclusion, he was serious. Aizawa caught Izuku's eye. For a second, the teacher's mask slipped. He gave a nearly imperceptible nod. He changed his mind, Izuku realized. I convinced him. Midoriya, Aizawa said, tossing a slip of paper at him. Go to Recovery Girl. Get that fixed. Tomorrow, the real trials begin. Don't expect me to go easy on you just because you're fragile. Yes, sir. Izuku bowed. Recovery Girl's office. Smooch. Izuku felt his vitality drain away as the healing accelerated. His fingers snapped back into shape, the purple bruising fading to a light yellow. You have a terrifying quirk, Sunny, Recovery Girl said, hopping down from her stool. Using your brain to override your body's safety mechanisms? That's a path to self-destruction. I know, Izuku said, looking at his healed finger. But until my body catches up to my brain, I have to trade damage for results. Well, try to trade less, she scolded. Go home. The next day, Foundational Hero Studies. I am here. Coming through the door like a normal person, All Might marched into the classroom in his Silver Age costume. The class erupted in cheers. Hero Basic Training. All Might flexed. Today we're doing combat training, he pointed to the wall. Panels slid open, revealing numbered suitcases, and to go with that, costumes. Izuku felt a surge of excitement. He had spent months designing his suit. He had sent the blueprints to the support company with detailed specifications, specs that most support companies would call insane. Ground beta. The students walked out of the tunnel. It was a fashion show of superpowers. Uraraka in her pink spacesuit. Ida in his armor. Bakugo with his grenade gauntlets. And then Izuku stepped out. His costume wasn't spandex. It was a prototype of the future. He wore a dark green jumpsuit made of a Kevlar fabric. But over it, bolted onto his limbs, was a skeletal framework. Item, Exoskeleton frame V1. Function, reinforcement. Metal rods ran down the sides of his legs, connecting to heavy, mechanized boots. The rods were designed to absorb shock, allowing him to land from heights that would shatter normal bones. On his arms, the servo bracers were bulkier than the beach version. Hydraulic pistons hissed softly with every movement of his elbow, but the most striking feature was the helmet. It was a sleek, angular cowl that covered the top half of his face. It had rabbit ear-like protrusions, but they were functional, antennas and heat sinks. A visor covered his eyes, glowing with a soft green light. System sync complete. Suit diagnostics, all green. Cooling system, active. A soft hiss of nitrogen gas released from the vents in the ears, cooling the air around his head. Whoa, Midoriya! Uraraka ran over. You look like a robot. It's functional, Izuku said, his voice slightly digitized by the mask's modulator. He tapped the side of the helmet. The cowl helps regulate my brain temperature. The leg braces prevent muscle tearing during high-speed movement. And the bracers add 600 psi to my punch. He looked at his hands. He wasn't just a boy with a smart brain anymore. He was a weapon. All Might looked at him, his smile widening. He didn't try to copy me. He built something entirely his own. Looking good, embryos. All Might shouted. Now let's draw lots. It's time for the trial of battle. Izuku's HUD cycled through the faces of his classmates. Objective, combat. Mode, tactical. He was ready. Logic was about to hit the field. The concept of a fight suggests a chaotic exchange of violence. To the observer, it is a flurry of fists, quirks, and shouting. To Izuku Midoriya, standing in the dimly lit monitoring room of Ground Beta, it was simply an equation waiting to be solved. Location, Ground Beta, Urban Combat Zone. Objective, retrieve nuclear weapon or capture villains. Time limit 15 minutes. He adjusted the strap of his glove. The servomotors in his bracers whirred softly, a comforting white noise against the thrumming anticipation in his veins. Beside him, Ochako Uraraka was bouncing on the balls of her feet, exhaling sharply to psych herself up. We're really doing this, she murmured, looking at the massive concrete building looming ahead. Against Bakugo and Ida. Team A versus Team D, Izuku corrected, his voice modulated slightly by his helmet's vocal processor. Heroes versus villains. He tapped the side of his cowl. A holographic wireframe of the building projected onto his retina, overlaying the real world. Opponent 1, Tenya Ida. Quirk engine. Threat profile, speed, momentum. Linear attack patterns. Designation, the constant. Opponent 2, Katsuki Bakugo. Quirk, explosion. Threat profile, high mobility, range destruction, CQC. Designation, the variable. Deku-kun? Uraraka waved a hand in front of his visor. You went quiet. Are you calculating? Always, Izuku said. He reached into his utility pouch and pulled out a small, foil-wrapped square. A high-concentration glucose tab. He popped it into his mouth, chewing rapidly. Listen, Uraraka-san, this won't be a standard 2-on-2. Kaken. Bakugo won't care about the bomb. He won't care about the team dynamic. He's coming for me, Uraraka frowned. Because of what happened at the quirk assessment. Because he needs to prove a hypothesis, Izuku said, swallowing the sweet paste. He needs to prove that my quirk is a trick. That I'm still beneath him. He's going to abandon the objective to hunt me down. So, we fight him together? No, Izuku turned to her, the green glow of his visor reflecting in her eyes. If we both engage him, we lose time. And if Ida fortifies the weapon room, we lose the objective. I will draw Bakugo's aggro. You will proceed to the target. But can you beat him? Uraraka asked, worry creasing her forehead. He's really scary. Izuku looked at his hand. He flexed his fingers, the metal exoskeleton reinforcing his grip. Scary is an emotional response, Izuku said coolly. Fear is just data I haven't processed yet. I'll keep him occupied. You win the war. Start. All Might's voice boomed over the loudspeakers. Timer, 1500 hours. Mission start. Izuku didn't run blindly. He moved with the eerie, gliding gait he had perfected over the last 10 months. Knees bent, center of gravity low, minimizing the noise of his boots against the pavement. They entered the building through a ground-floor window. The interior was a maze of concrete pillars and shadowed corridors. The air smelled of dust and old oil. Audio sensors, amplified. Detecting footsteps. Negative. Detecting respiration. Negative. It's too quiet, Uraraka whispered. He's waiting, Izuku murmured. Corner ambush. It's his style. He likes to open with a right hook to disorient. They approached a T-junction. Izuku's neural drive spiked. Detecting thermal spike. Source, around corner left. Heat signature, nitroglycerin ignition. Down. Izuku roared. He didn't wait for Uraraka to react. He grabbed her by the back of her costume and threw himself sideways. Boom! The wall exploded. Debris and smoke erupted from the corner where they had been standing a millisecond ago. A figure launched out of the smoke, shrouded in sparks and rage. Deku! Bakugo was midair, his gauntlet pulled back for a follow-up strike. Time dilation, active. To the outside world, Bakugo was a blur. To Izuku, he was a slideshow. Izuku saw the sweat glistening on Bakugo's palm. He saw the twitch of the deltoid muscle indicating the angle of the swing. He saw the manic dilation of Bakugo's pupils. Attack vector, right hook. Force estimate, 800 newtons. Counter, judo throw 4 SEOI nage. Izuku didn't retreat. He stepped into the explosion's aftershock. As Bakugo's arm swung down, Izuku ducked. The explosion singed the sensors on his cowl, flashing a heat warning in his eyes, but he ignored it. He grabbed Bakugo's forearm with his left hand. The servomotors in his bracer hissed, clamping down with hydraulic force. What? Bakugo's eyes widened. Izuku pivoted on his heel. He used the momentum of Bakugo's own rocket-propelled attack against him. Leverage, Izuku stated. He slammed Bakugo into the concrete floor. Crack. The wind was knocked out of the blonde. Izuku didn't hesitate. He grabbed Uraraka's hand and pulled her up. Go! Now! Right! Uraraka scrambled away, heading for the stairs. Bakugo coughed, rolling onto his feet. He glared at Uraraka's retreating back, then looked at Izuku. He didn't chase her. You! Bakugo growled, smoke curling from his palms. You read me. You read my moves. You telegraph, Izuku said, standing straight. He adopted a defensive stance, hands open, palms facing forward. You always lead with the right because you're dominant side reliant. It's a bad habit. Bakugo's face twisted. It wasn't just anger anymore. It was humiliation. The nerd he had bullied for a decade was critiquing his form. Telegraph this. Bakugo launched himself forward. In the monitoring room, the class watched in stunned silence. He flipped Bakugo? Kirishima gaped. Like it was nothing? It wasn't nothing, Momo Yayorozu observed, her eyes narrowed. Look at Midoriya's movement. He moved before Bakugo exited the smoke. He predicted the ambush. Young Midoriya acts as if he has played this level before, All Might thought, clutching the microphone. His quirk allows him to process the present so fast it looks like he's seeing the future. But Bakugo is a combat genius. Instinct versus intellect. Which will break first? Current threat, Katsuki Bakugo. Adrenaline levels, rising. Predicted aggression, maximum. The hallway was narrow. This favored Izuku's analysis but favored Bakugo's area of effect, AoE. Bakugo didn't just run. He used his explosions to strafe, bouncing off the walls to build speed. Left wall. Floor. Ceiling. Right. He was a pinball of destruction. Target velocity, 15m/s. Tracking pattern. Error, pattern erratic. Izuku stepped back, his eyes darting wildly behind the visor. Stop analyzing me! Bakugo screamed, dropping from the ceiling. He unleashed a blast directly at Izuku's face. Izuku raised his arms. Shield mode. He crossed his bracers. The reinforced plating took the brunt of the blast. The heat was intense. Armor integrity, 88%. Temperature, 120 degrees Celsius. The force skidded Izuku backward 10 meters. He dug his metallic heels into the ground, carving gouges in the concrete. You're just looking at me like I'm a math problem. Bakugo yelled, landing and firing again. Boom. 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 I'm not a variable. I'm the guy who's gonna crush you. Izuku parried the blasts. He wasn't fighting back yet. He was gathering data. Blast radius, 1.5 meters. Reload time between large blasts, 0.8 seconds. Sweat accumulation, accelerating. You are a variable, Izuku said, his voice calm amidst the explosions. He ducked under a swing, the heat searing the top of his helmet. But variables can be solved. Izuku saw an opening. Bakugo overextended on a left jab. Opening detected. Execute. Solar plexus strike. Izuku's right arm shot out. The piston in his bracer fired. His thud. His fist connected with Bakugo's stomach. Bakugo gagged, stumbling back. But his reaction speed was insane. Even while winded, he instinctively fired an explosion at the floor to create distance. They separated, panting. You! Bakugo wheezed, clutching his gut. You got some fancy toys. But that brain of yours, it's gonna burn out eventually. Izuku felt the throb in his temples. Bakugo was right. The neural drive was running hot. The visual processing of the explosions, tracking every spark, every debris fragment, was taxing his GPU. He needed to end this. Or change the battlefield. Status update, Izuku whispered into his comms. I'm on the 5th floor. Uraraka's voice crackled in his ear. Ida is guarding the room. He's talking to himself. Something about being evil? Keep out of sight, Izuku commanded. I need 2 minutes. 2 minutes? Bakugo grinned. He stood up straight, his breathing stabilizing. He raised his right arm. He reached for the pin on his gauntlet. Izuku's HUD flashed red. Warning. High energy signature detected. Object, grenade bracer. Estimated yield, lethal. Young Bakugo, stop. All Might's voice cut through the speakers in the hallway. Are you trying to kill him? You'll be disqualified. He won't die if he dodges. Bakugo shouted at the ceiling. And he's the analytical hero, right? Calculate this. His finger hooked the pin. Calculation, evasion impossible in narrow corridor. Calculation, blocking impossible. Izuku's mind accelerated. The world froze. I can't dodge. I can't block. The blast wave will fill the corridor. Physics. Fluid dynamics. Expansion of gas. The blast travels fastest path of least resistance. Izuku looked at the wall to his right. It was a non-load-bearing partition. Solution. Create new path. Bakugo pulled the pin. A blinding light erupted from the gauntlet. A roar like a jet engine consuming the world. In that split second, Izuku didn't look at the explosion. He turned to the wall. Activate. Servo overdrive. Target. Structural weak point. Izuku punched the wall. Not to hurt an enemy, but to escape. The wall crumbled just as the blast wave hit. Izuku dove through the hole he created, curling into a ball. The shockwave followed him, debris slamming into his back, but he was out of the direct line of fire. The building shook. Dust filled the air. Midoriya! Uraraka screamed over the comms. In the monitor room, the screen showing the hallway was pure white static. Did he just nuke him? Kaminari whispered, horrified. As the smoke cleared, half the hallway was gone. The outer wall of the building was blown out. Bakugo stood there, panting, his arm trembling from the recoil. Come out, Deku. I know you're not done. From the rubble in the adjacent room, a green light flickered. Izuku stood up. His jumpsuit was torn. The ears of his cowl were damaged, one snapped off completely. His left shoulder armor was slagged, but he was standing. Damage report, armor 40%. Body integrity bruised. No fractures. Cooling system, offline. Heat. The heat was bad. Izuku felt like his brain was wrapped in wool. You missed, Izuku rasped. I missed? Bakugo laughed, a manic sound. I blew up the damn floor. You wasted your stockpile, Izuku said. He walked toward a wall panel. It was a utility junction box, exposed by the blast. That was your trump card. Now you're just a guy with sweaty palms. I'll kill you! Bakugo charged. Izuku didn't take a fighting stance. He turned his back on Bakugo. Hey! Don't ignore me! Izuku punched the utility box open. He ripped out a bundle of cables. From his wrist bracer, a data jack extended. He jammed it into the port. Interface, building management system, security, low, accessing, die. Bakugo was 5 meters away. Izuku's eyes rolled back for a second as his consciousness split. Thread 1 combat evasion. Thread 2 cyber infiltration. Warning, split processor load. Brain temperature 103 degrees Fahrenheit. Izuku dropped to his knees as Bakugo's explosion flew over his head. He hadn't looked. He had calculated Bakugo's trajectory based on the sound of his footsteps. Stop dodging, Izuku rolled, dodging another blast. He was moving purely on auditory cues now, his vision consumed by lines of code. System/fire_control/sprinklers. Access denied. Bypass. Root access. Uraraka, Izuku said, his voice strained. Is the pillar in the center of the room marked with a 4? Yes. Wait, are you fighting? I'm hacking, Izuku grunted, ducking a swing that took a chunk out of his helmet. Bakugo is persistent. Access granted. Izuku pulled the jack out. He spun around. Bakugo was right there. Too close. He grabbed Izuku by the collar. Caught you, Bakugo hissed. His other hand raised, sparking. Game over, nerd. You're right, Izuku said. He looked Bakugo in the eye. It is over. For you. Izuku blinked. A command sent. Execute deluge. Click hiss. The fire sprinklers in the hallway, and the entire floor, erupted. It wasn't a mist. It was a torrent of industrial fire suppression water. Gah! Bakugo sputtered, water drenching him instantly. Nitroglycerin sweat, Izuku explained, shouting over the noise of the water. It requires ignition. Wet fuses don't light Kaken. Bakugo tried to fire. Zzzt. Pop small, pathetic sparks died instantly in the deluge. My quirks. Bakugo stared at his hands in horror. You relied on the constant, Izuku said, stepping forward. The water ran down his ruined armor, making him look like a battered machine. You assumed your power was absolute. But physics is the only absolute. Izuku wound back his fist. Now, Izuku said. Without your explosions, you're just a middle schooler with an anger problem. He punched. It wasn't a lethal blow. It was a calculated strike to the jaw, powered by the servo bracer. Pow! Bakugo crumpled. He wasn't unconscious, but he was dazed, lying in a puddle of water, unable to ignite, unable to stand. Izuku stood over him for a second. Target neutralized. Heart rate, 160 BPM. Cooling needed. He touched his comms. Uraraka. Pattern delta. The floor is wet. Ida relies on friction for his engine torque. He's going to slip. Got it. Floor 5, the weapon room. Ida was pacing. Midoriya is down there engaging Bakugo. Foolish. A hero must prioritize the objective. I, the villain, shall protect this nuclear core with my life. Suddenly, the sprinklers overhead burst open. What? A malfunction? Ida looked up, his glasses fogging instantly. The floor became a slick sheet of linoleum and water. Comet home run! Ida spun around. Uraraka emerged from behind a pillar. She had touched a mass of debris, chunks of concrete from the damaged building. She was swinging a concrete pillar like a baseball bat. Improvised weapon! Ida shouted. He tried to rev his engines to dodge. Vroom, scree. His tires spun uselessly on the wet floor. He had zero traction. Whoa! Ida flailed, sliding uncontrollably into the wall. Clang! Uraraka released the pillar. She floated herself. Sorry, Ida-kun. She flew over his head. No! The weapon! Ida scrambled, but he was like a cow on ice. Uraraka hugged the papier-mâché bomb. Captured. Hero team wins. All Might's voice echoed through the speakers. The sprinklers shut off. In the hallway, silence returned, broken only by the dripping of water. Izuku leaned against the wall, sliding down until he hit the floor. He ripped his helmet off. His hair was plastered to his forehead with sweat and water. Steam was literally rising from his scalp. He looked at Bakugo. Bakugo was sitting up, staring at his wet hands. He wasn't screaming. He wasn't raging. He looked broken. You! Bakugo whispered. You didn't even use a quirk to beat me. You used rain? Izuku coughed, clutching his chest. His head felt like it was splitting open. I used data, Izuku wheezed. He reached into his pouch, fingers trembling, and pulled out another glucose tab. And you were a tough variable to solve. Bakugo looked up. He saw the exhaustion in Izuku's face. He saw the trembling. I lost, Bakugo said, the words tasting like ash. To Deku. The review. The class was gathered in the monitor room. Izuku had an ice pack strapped to his head. Bakugo was wrapped in a towel, sitting in the corner, staring at the floor. Well, All Might said, trying to keep the mood up despite the obvious psychological damage inflicted on one of his students. Excellent work. Now, who can tell me who the MVP of this battle was? It was Ida, Tsuyu Ajiri croaked. Incorrect. Momo Yaoyorozu raised her hand. It was Midoriya. All Might blinked. Oh? Explain, young Yaoyorozu. Momo adjusted her ponytail. Her eyes were fixed on Izuku with a mix of admiration and slight fear. Midoriya formulated a multi-stage plan, Momo began. He correctly predicted Bakugo's psychological state, and used himself as bait. He minimized damage to his partner. But most importantly, she gestured to the screens showing the wet hallway. He hacked the building's infrastructure in the middle of a high-stress combat scenario. He turned the environment itself into a weapon. It was terrifyingly efficient. She looked at Bakugo. Bakugo's loss was inevitable the moment he engaged Midoriya on Midoriya's terms. Bakugo fought a brawl. Midoriya fought a war. Izuku shrank into his scarf. I just didn't want to get blown up. Also, Momo added, Midoriya caused massive structural damage to the fourth-floor wall to escape the blast. Deducting points for property damage would be fair, but saving his own life takes precedence. Right. Yes. All Might nodded, sweating. Very good analysis. The locker room. The day was over. Izuku was changing out of his damp costume. Hey, Midoriya. Kirishima walked over. That was manly as hell. The way you hacked the sprinklers? Genius. Thanks, Izuku smiled weakly. My head still hurts though. You totally wrecked Bakugo, Sero whispered. Look at him. Bakugo was leaving the room. He hadn't said a word since the fight. He walked with his head down, an aura of dark depression surrounding him. Izuku paused. Subject, Katsuki Bakugo. Status, ego collapse. Risk of stagnation, high. Izuku finished tying his tie. He ran out of the locker room. Kaken! Bakugo stopped near the school gates. He didn't turn around. What? Izuku panted, catching his breath. I didn't beat you because I'm stronger. You're stronger. Your quirk is amazing. If that fight had been in an open field, if there were no sprinklers, I would have lost. Bakugo turned. His eyes were red. Are you pitying me? No, Izuku said. The blue light in his eyes flickered. I'm correcting your data. Izuku stepped closer. You thought I was a pebble on the side of the road. But I'm not. I'm a rival now. And I'm going to use everything, my brain, this school, the environment, to stay ahead of you. He pointed at Bakugo. So don't you dare crash just because you lost once. Recalculate. Adapt. Come at me again. Bakugo stared at him. The fire in his eyes wasn't fully back, but the emptiness was gone. It was replaced by something else. A grudge. A cold, burning need for redemption. I'm gonna crush you, Bakugo said quietly. I'm not gonna lose to a nerd with a HUD again. I'm gonna be number one. And you're just gonna be a stepping stone. He turned and walked away, slouching, hands in pockets. Izuku watched him go. Relationship status updated. Bully rival. Izuku sighed, rubbing his temples. Variable retained, he muttered. Calculation complete. He turned to leave, but stopped. A small icon was blinking in the corner of his vision. A notification he hadn't noticed during the adrenaline of the fight. System update available. Source, unknown external signal. Download? Izuku frowned. An external signal? From where? He hadn't connected to the internet, only the building's internal grid. He hesitated. Ignore. He dismissed the notification. Probably just a glitch from the blast damage to his helmet. He walked home, unaware that in a dark bar across the city, A man with a face covered in hands was looking at a computer screen. Sensei, Shigaraki scratched his neck. The NPC, he rejected the packet. Patience, Tamura, a voice from the monitor replied. Intelligence seeks knowledge. Eventually, he will click accept.